Hey, Justin Largen here. Out enjoying a nice river today, getting some fishing in, and I thought I'd take a couple minutes to talk about my top 4 baits for the month of August. August around a lot of the country is one of the hottest months of the year, and it's some of the toughest fishing. What I like to do, you can definitely catch fish in lakes, but at least from my perspective in a kayak, you have some obstacles when you're out in the lake. You've got a lot more pleasure boat traffic, you've got jet skiers, wakeboarders, and the fish can be tough. You got to catch them out deep. It's not one of my favorite ways to do it. Now, you can definitely catch them shallow, early, and late, but what I like to do this time of year is get to rivers. So my picks are going to be kind of geared towards river fishing. You can use these baits anywhere and catch fish, but I like them specifically in your tidal rivers and in your non-tidal rivers. So my first pick is a Missile 48. This thing is extremely versatile. Like I mentioned, it can be a tough bite this time of year, and this bait will draw bites from fish that are not actively feeding. It's just a fish catcher, and you can rig it a bunch of different ways. This one I've got rigged up here just with a 16th ounce jig head, and it's wacky style. It's one of my favorite ways to do it. It's got a nice shimmy when it falls, just very seductive. Fish like it. They'll hit it when they're aggressive and when they're not aggressive. Another way I like to fish it is Texas rig, and I'll go into some more detail maybe another time talking about how to actually rig these. But a Texas rig with light weight, you can put this on 8-pound test line, a spinning rod. You can use braid with a leader on it, but I like when I'm using that spinning rod and light line, I like 8-pound line. I like a thin wire hook. I'll put a number 2-aught hook, and you can skip this thing around. It'll still have that real slow, subtle fall. But with the Texas rig, you can throw it into some places where you might get snagged more with that jig head. So first bait for me got to be the 48. Second, everybody loves to throw topwater. You can definitely catch fish early and late on topwater this time of year. But on some of these rivers, the bite can go on much longer, especially if you're around smallmouth. So my favorite bait for that is some sort of topwater plug. This is a Berkeley Chapo, the 90 size. I think this is the ghost minnow color, nice and clear, very subtle. A lot of times you'll have clear water in some of these streams, and this, I think this color does a good job of not spooking them too much. It looks natural. They hear that plop, plop, plop sound of the bait, and you'll draw a lot of good strikes. You'll catch fish with this size, some smaller fish, but you'll also get those big bites with this bait. Now you can also throw different topwater baits. Like say you find, for example, fish are on docks and they're not real aggressive, they're not wanting to run down this. You could throw something maybe like a popper in there that sits a little bit longer. It looks like an easier meal for them. Something like that can work, but this is my favorite. I can cover a lot of water with it. And again, you can mix colors up depending on conditions, but for what we've got here today, it's a relatively clear stream, finicky smallmouth, so I like that more subtle color. All right, so number three. Number 3, I had to talk about a chatterbait. This thing, there are not many better baits. I can't think of a better bait for a tidal river. And places like the tidal Potomac, you can get in there and catch fish dirt shallow, even in the heat of the summer. A little trick I like to do is go look for streams, like all the way back in the back of creeks, places some of the boats can't even get to. You'll have feeder creeks coming in where you'll have colder water, and that colder water is like a magnet. When the rest of the river is in the 80s and you've got spots that are even a few degrees cooler, they can really be full of fish. And a chatterbait is just a perfect bait. You can throw it around grass. It comes through that cover really well. You can rip it out of the grass. It'll draw big bites. I've caught some big river fish on this bait, and you can do it even in the dog days of summer. So chatterbait's number 3, and I'm going to go a little different with my 4th pick. Little small swim bait. This is again something if I'm going to be fishing a small river, someplace kind of out of the way. This is just a perfect search bait. It's subtle, it's very realistic. What I've got on here is a Missile Shockwave in the 3.5-inch color, and it's just on a 1/8 ounce jig head. Now you can vary that size depending on how deep you're fishing it, how much current there is. If you find, sometimes you'll find the fish want it retrieved up near the surface. Sometimes they'll want it a little deeper. You can bump the rocks with it. I've even caught fish with this, just casting that, letting it sit on the bottom, and just hopping it, you know, little twitches periodically, and they'll come get it. But this is a perfect bait for those rivers. Another bait you might substitute for this, small grub, like 4-inch grub, is going to be very similar. You're going to be able to throw it pretty much anywhere, straight retrieve it, hop it along the bottom. It looks like a lot of different things, crawfish, you know, minnows, some type of bait fish. It just looks like something that they want to eat. So that is another, that's going to be my fourth pick. So that's my top 4 for the month of August. Again, don't be afraid to get out there even in the heat of the day. You know, look for things like shade, but those rivers are a perfect way to still power fish, still get out there and kind of fish what to me is one of the most fun ways to fish and get bites, even when it's too hot and everybody else is staying home in the AC.